The Panama Chokepoint, the geopolitical hardware of global trade. The architecture of global trade does not operate on an abstract, frictionless digital cloud. It is bound to the physical, unyielding geography of the Earth's crust, a hardware layer dominated by massive oceans, treacherous mountain ranges, and narrow maritime corridors. In the raw ledger of global commerce, 90% of all physical commodities are moved via maritime freight networks, navigating a series of highly vulnerable bottleneck nodes known as maritime choke points. Among these critical routing coordinates, there is one artificial exploit that permanently altered the geopolitical operating system of the Western Hemisphere, the Panama Canal. This 82-kilometer engineering marvel is not merely a transport utility. It is a highly strategic, structural shortcut that rewrote the global trade source code by physically connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. In the analytical framework of global power dynamics, the Panama Canal represents the ultimate geopolitical hardware hack, a vital, high-security routing node where physical geography, corporate extraction, and imperial sovereignty converge to control the lifeblood of the global economic engine. To comprehend the sheer strategic scale of the Panama Canal exploit, one must analyze the historic computational latency of global shipping before its activation. For centuries, any maritime vessel attempting to transfer cargo from the eastern seaboard of the Americas to the western ports of Asia or South America was forced to execute a high-latency, high-risk routing sequence around Cape Horn at the southernmost tip of South America. This treacherous journey added over 13,000 kilometers to the voyage, exposing wooden and early steel vessels to sub-zero temperatures, violent oceanic storms, and catastrophic mechanical failures. The economic processing cost of this delay was immense, acting as a massive systemic bottleneck that restricted the flow of capital and materials. The conceptualization of a canal through the narrow Isthmus of Panama was the ultimate geopolitical optimization protocol, a physical patch designed to cut through a narrow strip of land, bypassing an entire continent and dropping transit times from weeks to mere hours. The initial construction phase of this geographical hack, however, revealed the brutal defensive firewalls of the natural ecosystem. When the French entrepreneur Ferdinand de Lesseps, buoyed by his success with the sea-level Suez Canal, attempted to execute a similar sea-level excavation in Panama during the late 19th century, his system experienced a catastrophic hardware failure. Panama's geography was a hostile, dense jungle database characterized by unstable, landslide-prone mountain passes and rampant biological pathogens like yellow fever and malaria. The French engineering model, refusing to adapt to the local terrain variables, suffered a total system crash, resulting in the physical deletion of over 20,000 workers and ultimate financial liquidation. It was only when the rising imperial superpower, the United States, acquired the project assets in 1904 that the engineering architecture was completely reprogrammed. The American developers realized that a sea-level canal was mathematically impossible due to the mountainous terrain. Instead, they designed a highly complex, artificial gravity-based operating system, a lock system powered entirely by the flow of fresh water from the massive, newly constructed Gatun Lake. This lock system functions as a series of physical step-up and step-down processors. When a massive container ship enters the canal, it is raised 26 meters above sea level through a sequence of 3 massive chambers, using gravity-fed water to lift the vessel's immense weight. The ship then transits the artificial lake and the narrow, carved-out Culebra Cut before being lowered back down to sea level on the opposite ocean. This lock and dam architecture is a brilliant mechanical software patch, but it introduces a critical, non-optional systemic dependency. The entire system runs on fresh water. Every single transit through the canal expels approximately 200 million liters of fresh water from Gatun Lake directly into the oceans. This makes the entire global trade routing node highly vulnerable to environmental variables. If rainfall patterns disrupt the local watershed, Gatun Lake's water levels drop, forcing the canal authorities to implement draft restrictions, effectively reducing the carrying capacity of the ships or limit the number of daily transits. In the era of volatile climate patterns, the Panama Canal's dependency on fresh water has become a critical vulnerability in the global supply chain, demonstrating how easily a physical bottleneck can choke global distribution channels. The geopolitical control of this strategic hardware has historically been a zero-sum game of imperial sovereignty and national defense. For the United States, the construction of the canal was not merely a commercial endeavor, but a military necessity to project naval power across two oceans. By controlling the canal zone as a sovereign, militarized enclave, the United States successfully established a geopolitical firewall in the Western Hemisphere, allowing its naval fleets to transition between the Atlantic and Pacific theaters with zero latency. This strategic dominance was maintained throughout the 20th century, transforming Panama into a highly monitored vassal node. However, the rise of sovereign nationalist movements in Panama eventually forced a systemic update. The Torrijos-Carter treaties of 1977 initiated a gradual, multi-decade handover process, culminating on December 31, 1999, when the Republic of Panama assumed complete sovereign control over its own canal hardware. In the modern digital era, the Panama Canal operates under a new matrix of global competition and systemic threats. While Panama officially manages the physical operations of the canal, the underlying economic flows are dominated by the world's major manufacturing and consuming powers, primarily the United States and China. For China, the Panama Canal represents both a vital trade artery for its massive export machine and a potential strategic vulnerability. In a hypothetical conflict scenario, the blockading or closing of the Panama Canal would instantly choke Chinese access to the grain and mineral markets of the US East Coast and South America. Consequently, global actors are constantly looking for alternative routing exploits. From proposed land bridge rail networks in Colombia and Mexico to the long-discussed, Chinese-backed Nicaragua Canal project, the quest to build a parallel shipping corridor remains an active pursuit among global competitors eager to bypass Panama's monopoly over the isthmus. Furthermore, the physical hardware of the canal has been forced to undergo massive structural upgrades to keep pace with the exponential growth of global ship sizes. In 2016, the Panama Canal Authority completed the third set of locks expansion project, a massive, multi-billion-dollar system update designed to accommodate Neo-Panamax vessels, which carry up to 3 times the cargo volume of traditional ships. Yet, even with these physical updates, the canal remains locked in a constant battle against the limitations of physical space and environmental resources. The Panama Canal is a vivid reminder that no matter how fast our digital communications become, the physical movement of our globalized economy is still governed by the ancient, uncompromising laws of geography, water, and steel. The global trade networks and geopolitical matrices are shifting faster than ever, and those who remain unaligned will inevitably be caught in the next systemic bottleneck. To secure your access to our independent analytical stream and protect your cognitive firewall from the mainstream programming grid, you must actively register your presence in our network. Subscribe to the channel right now, hit that like button to signal your active cognitive sovereignty to the algorithm, and leave a comment below with the word conscious to verify you are a self-directed human terminal decoding the mechanics of global power. Stay analytical, stay free.